Hey YouTubers, this is Jim. Thanks for coming back to Wookie's Uncle. Today we are going to finally finish talking about Stormtroopers. I know I've been spending a lot of time in the last two videos discussing the differences between different versions, different makes, different companies. Well, EFX and RS Prop Masters to be specific. There's a lot more out there, and I just don't have them to discuss other than one more. And he's sitting behind me on the table, getting ready to be talked about. We are going to look at the Black Series Stormtrooper from Hasbro, which was based on the Rogue One version. It's pretty much the replica from that. I don't know the exact lineage. If anybody knows, go ahead and tell me. But to my best knowledge, they used the same files that they used to make the props for the movie. It's just that when they made the Black Series version, they, made some changes to it for production's sake, and a price point, to bring it to more saleable price. But again, I find with all of this Black Series product, again, the bones of them are there, fantastic, but they've taken so many cheap corner cutting things with these releases that I'm just my OCD is forced to do something about it, because how can you say no to a nearly screen accurate, or at least troopable, or would be able to be troopable with a little work, helmet for what, 100 and some change? I have higher end stuff and I love them for what they are, but and they are what they are. But these Black Series things are, and I'm not really promoting Black Series or whatever just on its own, but just the reality is that Hasbro's been nailing it in the sense that what they've been putting out has the roots, it has the bones, and I just wish they could just take an extra step and do what needs to be done to it, find a way anyway. And if that adds another $20 or $30 onto the price, it would be awesome. Anyway, so what I did is the Rogue One Stormtrooper has a lot of the downfalls of the Black Series helmets, especially the electronic ones, where, except for the Boba Fett, we'll talk about that because I did my thing with Boba Fett's helmet, and that will be a longer video because there's a lot to it, and it's one of my favorite pieces. But anyway, the Stormtrooper helmet had a good idea with the electronics in it, but it just was implemented horribly, and where they decided to put all the electronics in the helmet made it unwearable for people with a gargantuan cranium like mine. The ponytail and the thick, Irish and Nordic hair that I have doesn't help either. But the general size of it, though, you would have to be a kid or just be a smaller size head, and that's cool. If you are, but for me it wasn't, and I wanted to be able to have fun with it, and so I went through an extensive process with this. I'll generalize it here when I start showing you the helmet, but I really had to literally cut the thing into pieces, break it apart, cut it in and cut it up, and really, really from the ground up, almost a completely new piece, and got it to back to like a box fresh look, where it would have been a pristine out of the box look, and that was cool. But I wanted to do something different with it, and I was thinking about doing a quirky little repaint or finish up with it. Originally I thought about doing like that little 2 seconds at the end of Return of the Jedi that you see the Ewoks doing their xylophone thing on the what is decapitated it's all Imperials that they as trophies of war at the end of Jedi, but nobody thinks about that, do they? I mean, how'd they get those helmets? They didn't just take them off of them. We know what they did. But the one trooper helmet that's just kind of dangling on the post there, I thought it'd be funny to make him just without the eyepieces and all real beat up and banished and hanging on a stick, and call it the Ewok trophy celebration Stormtrooper or something like that. Maybe I'll still do that. Or if any of you guys get an idea and do it, I'd love to see it. Love to see it. That'd be awesome. Maybe put a little Ewok hatchet coming down on its head or something. I don't know. But I decided to go with it's a Rogue One helmet. It was designed and built after the Rogue One files from the movie, again, as best as I know. So why not just make it a Rogue One helmet? So what caught my eye was towards the beginning of the film when they're leading Jyn Erso through in the transport vehicle to the Imperial labor camp, and they have the two stormtrooper guards in there with her, and they're just real battered and beat up and weathered looking. I mean, to the nth degree. And I thought that would be cool to really tackle that level weathering. My previous video that I have with the RS Prop Messers Sand Trooper shows how much weathering the Sand Trooper actually has. And RS does a top drawer film level quality job with all of their stuff. But even that didn't have the level of weathering that this Stormtrooper had. I mean, it's like the guy fell in the mud and had to get back up. So I wanted to try and tackle that without having to, or see if I could do it, without coming across as being a little too heavy-handed on the weathering. I mean, weathering isn't just splotching dirt on something. You have to really kind of have an eye for it, and it was a challenge. I literally spent lots of time with the helmet in my hand, standing 2 feet away from the 4K on my 65-inch TV on pause, looking at every little spot and either just mapping it out on the helmet or with a brush in my hand, just looking and putting a little dot where I wanted things, or a little bit of a blemish, and then sit down and handle a sector of the helmet at a time, and keep going back and forth until I got it right, or as close as I was willing to put into it, because I mean, it's on my own dime here, right? So anyway, let's get to it, and I'll show you the helmet here and explain a little bit more about what I did to it and what it looks like, and we'll do that. All right, cool. Okay, here you are, everybody. This is my Hasbro Black Series Rogue One helmet repaint. And as I was just saying a few minutes ago, it's much more than a repaint. It's a complete rebuild of the helmet, and then extensive repainting of it. So we're just taking a look over the outside of it first. And I finally did get some partial lighting in here as opposed to the last video, so things look a little bit better. But I don't want to get in the light, so what I'll do is I'll probably just come over here. As you can see from what we're looking at, the weathering on the helmet is just, so just everywhere. And I tried to match it as best I could to the screen, accurate, or to what's on screen. And where I had an issue was there was during the scene again where Jyn Erso is being transported to the labor camp. There's two troopers in the transport vehicle with her, and we didn't see both sides of the face of both troopers. We only saw this side of one trooper, and we saw the front and this side of the other trooper, and a little bit of the back and the top of that second trooper. So I kind of had to marry the two in a way to kind of make them look like they're the same helmet, because I didn't really have enough to go off of both of them. So, so what we did was, is starting on a blank, pristine white paint job that I had done on it. Just started to just lightly dab and some weathering. I mean, I'm using a panel line liquid from Tamiya, the brown and the black liquids, which brown wash or black wash, if you want to call it that, and just a crumpled up paper towel, and just kind of dab a spot on the paper towel from the jar or from the bottle. And just real lightly, I started with the brown color first, just to get a dirty base where I wanted it on the helmet. And just started working my way up as I saw things on screen. And just little by little, dab by dab. And a lot of dabbing it on and going, oops, I messed up, wipe it off with a little thinner and re-dab until I got it. Oops, messed up. And back and forth, until I built up to where I wanted it with the brown colors. And then the darker areas, I didn't try to make darker brown. I just added more of the black wash. And again, up and down, and wiping off and redoing it, wiping off and redoing it, until it got to where it looked acceptable. And it really was about 4 or 5 passes over the helmet, adding more weathering, and just generalized weathering, not even specific spots like this spot right here where you can see the shape. I mean, you can kind of see that on the guy's helmet. These 2 streaks on the top, you can kind of see that on the helmet. Things on the panels, under the eyes, those are what's on the helmet on screen is fairly well represented enough that you can see it here. So, but then even with that, there's still just a overall layer of darkness, of weathering to it. And I really had to just kind of go back and just take a larger crumpled up paper towel so I wouldn't get any wipes, as it were, looking spots on it, and just blotting on dark, and then dabbing it off to lift it off so it's not too dark where I needed it. It's that, and that's the weathering for me. And then went in with a brush and kind of dabbed in some of the more detailed spots. I wanted to detail the area a little bit instead of using a paper towel. So I mean, my technique may change as I go along doing this. If anybody who's watching this knows what they're doing and is kind of thinking to themselves, well, he should have done this or should have done that, that's cool. Tell me. I mean, I want to improve my game. But I think I did a fairly good job getting it to there. The thing also about the Black Series, about the Rogue One helmet, is I'll go over here, maybe you can see it. These stripes here, if I can get an angle, I don't know if you can tell from there, but they're actually, you can see it there a little bit. They're actually recessed into the into the material, rather than just being a stripe that's on top. And when you freeze frame the trooper on the movie, it's actually a very squared cutout, and then there's an obvious blue or dark blue line underneath of them, which is a cool idea. I mean, it acts more like a vent of sorts as it would be. These are just molded as a reset. So that was kind of, and they're not the same. They're progressively thicker as they go up, and progressively kind of going up at an angle. It's a weird way they did it, but that's the way they did it. And all these panels with the black lines, they actually have. Moving a hand. Actually, oh god, I got to dry my hands out from too much paint thinner. You can hear there's lines in there. They're etched in there the same way that these are. So when I repainted everything, I did. I painted over I sanded down the whole thing, painted it all white, painted over these panels, repainted them by hand with gray and black and the ears and all that stuff. And the brow here was black, but I repainted the whole thing because they did not have the underside of it black. I had to actually repaint that. So, getting a couple minutes here into the video, talking about this, and let's get around to the back here. Hang on a minute. Yeah, I know this is making you dizzy. Okay, so here's the back. And again, carrying the weathering pattern around it, not having seen it you just kind of have to make decisions about weathering. Like I had mentioned the other video, weathering is random. It's organic, and it's just generalized. You have to kind of think about, like, what would this helmet have hit, or what would cause it to be weathered? I mean, and how would the weathering affect, like, if it got rained on, or some mud dripping down it, or if it hit something and slid down a wall and makes a scrape down, like around here. That little things like that. How, just kind of envisioning, what did this guy go through, and what did he hit to cause that. So those are little weathering things that I had to do. So getting to what did I have to do to make this? All right. So I'm going to try and make this quick. It'd be better if I just showed you inside first, underneath of it. What we have is a lobotomy of a Stormtrooper helmet. Back here in this, I hope he doesn't tip over. Hang on, leave him there. Yeah, so back in this area, you can see a lot of the stuff where the electronics were. There's a battery box. There's where the speaker was. There's where the electronics were. And there was this whole molded shell that was all part of in here that came out like an inch and covered all of that molding and structure that the helmet is held together with. And as you can see around the rim where the dome is, everything was snapped together. There was there was a couple screws that were holding things together. And it was that. So I literally broke this thing into 3 pieces, unsnapped everything. The front half, the back half, and then the dome was its own piece. All came apart. I gutted all the electronics, and then dremeled out all the things that were sticking up. Like this post here was like way up here. It was about an inch higher. You just really couldn't get your head in there because you would be gouging your ears on it and so forth. Little bits of putty, as you can see, they're filling in some holes. I had to take the visor out so I wouldn't get paint on it when I was doing it, and the way they have everything all kind of like overlapping each other in here, it was like a maze trying to get everything off. But it was worth it, because then I had the freedom to do what I needed to do. This whole back trim is replacement S trim from Ole Props, and so that was the old trim that was on it was not accurate, but it came off easily. This trim up front is actually molded into the helmet, I think, and it was it wouldn't have been worth it to take it off, so I just left it on. So there's a little bit of a difference there, but that's all right. So yeah, gutting that all out, and I do have a liner over there that supposed to fit in here, but it doesn't quite fit in there. Okay, so here's the big problem. All right, so the getting everything out of there to make room and putting it all together is one thing, but the problem that we had is where the speaker and the battery box is left vents and a hatch, like a lid back here, very obvious. So I had to do something about that. So before I painted everything, I glued down the box, took the battery box out, took the speaker out. I mean, now that you know what I did, you could probably see it a little bit, but it's not any more than maybe, and that's a good part about weathering. Sometimes it covers this stuff. But you can barely even tell that that's there, and it's only there because I'm talking about it. If I just came like here and said, "Oh yeah, can you see it?" You'd never see it. But filling that in with contour putty, actually I filled it in from here out to get it up above the surface, and then had to do that a couple times as it settled in, and then puttied in the lines of the box, sanded it all down, and then repainted over it. So it's as good as of a job as I'm going to get without having been getting paid for this. So the all of that put together, and then gluing the helmet 3 pieces back together was just, it just not having a fully working shop of my own. I'm just doing it at my house and at a workbench table down in my basement, next to my washer and my dryer, which I've had to clean spray paint dust off a number of times now. Yeah, I got to get a new setup for that, but anyway. But here it is, and it ended up working out for the better, because I, haven't seen anybody else with a Rogue One Wobani Labor Camp Stormtrooper helmet, and so it's kind of my own little unique one-piece thing, and I think it works. So there's the last of my Stormtrooper for now, unless something else comes around. Last of my Stormtrooper reviews and or discussions. I've got other things again that I'm working on right now, the Snowspeeder refurbishing project, other helmets that I've done the work to, and other licensed and other prop replicas, helmets that I have. The case behind this contains a number of other things. We'll talk about them at some point. And the case back in the corner has a number of other things similar to that as we kind of go up through there. And somebody's up there, and we'll talk about that. Thanks for hanging out with me. And if you have any other comments or tips or weathering and building advice, let me know. I'd be glad to correspond with you. And as always, keep it up. Take care. Bye.